Our first guest is really exciting because it's a project bridging traditional gaming with NFTs. The project is ran by G2 Esports, who houses a handful of world-class esports teams. I'm of course referring to Samurai Army, who is looking to be the best social gaming club that incorporates NFTs. Luckily today, we are speaking with Daniel, the Samurai Army team lead.
Hey, Greg. Thank you for having us.
Yep. How's it going, Dan?
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Very much looking forward to this call. Thank you for the amazing intro as well. Very excited for this.
Yeah, it's going to be a ton of fun. So, right about now, it'd be great if you could just throw on a presentation, really just get into the basics of what Samurai Army is, the idea behind it, and I'll be sure to jump in if I have any questions in that regard. Also, let me know if you get any trouble there with that, but all about to add you to the stream. Here we go.
Awesome. So I think I just started my presentation. Let me know if that's all good.
Yep, all set.
Amazing. Okay, so yeah, thanks for welcoming us again. I think a good place to start is, Samurai Army. As you mentioned at the start, it is G2 Esports' first ever NFT and first foray into NFTs in general. It is not the last. It is just the start of where our ambitions are. And we're really excited to bring this not only to our fans, but gamers in general, and hopefully to the NFT space as well. So we're really excited for this. I think like a opening thing that I just want to mention as well is that for us, NFTs is very much a technology and a medium, and we're looking at it in that way. And so when we look at Samurai Army and how it fits into kind of like our longer term plans, it's very much a small piece of the puzzle. It's just the starting point, based on a lot of research that we've done in the space, and what we think will be the most effective in the short term. And hopefully, I can speak to a little bit about what are some of our longer term objectives next.
Yeah,
So,
that's really exciting.
um, yeah, please go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just gonna jump in, and it's great how you guys are really thinking about how you execute this and understanding that NFTs are really innovative, but you guys are looking to do it in a way that's not too intrusive and really adds value to the organization.
Yeah, 100%. And when we built this project from the very beginning, and yeah, this is like a good place to move on to the next slide. It very much was from the perspective fully of how do we build something that is meaningful and creates value for our fans first and foremost, and then for gamers as well. And this was really important to us because we knew that the mainstream gaming audience, our fans included, and to a certain extent, just the general mainstream outside of NFTs, does look at NFTs with a bit of skepticism currently, and for many good reasons as well. And so we wanted to make sure that we came out of the gate with something that was there was no doubt as to the value proposition that we are offering, and that it is certainly useful and interesting for our community and our fans. So what you see here is a brief kind of like summary of what we see for the long term vision. Our objectives with this is, as you mentioned, we're trying to build a social club for gamers, and so there are three really key aims that we need to kind of deliver on. One is that there needs to be a thriving and active community of gamers first and foremost, because it is a community based project, and the value of this project essentially sits in how good that community is. And so we work extremely hard, trying to think of ways to make this experience really fulfilling and sticky, right? So that people actually want to be here, and that we actually foster those relationships and those community members and the growth of that community, both naturally and in a sustainable and healthy way. Second is that we want to create value such that this is the social club for gamers, not just any, but what we're really aiming for is to be the best in the space. And I think so far there are not really any projects which target this niche of trying to fully focus on being a social club. A lot of NFT projects nowadays, they have staking, or they're creating games, or they're DAOs, and they're doing alpha, etc. There's all these little different niches of what kind of purpose the NFT project and the community serves. And for us, it's very much in that social angle. We looked at kind of like what is the G2 brand, what are our assets, and what can we kind of utilize to maximize the value out of this. And when we did that, we kind of thought actually a social club makes the most sense. It fills a space that isn't really strongly filled currently, and also allows us to make use of the G2 brand in really effective manners, in ways that actually creates a lot of value for our fans. And the
Yeah.
last one is that we actually want to expose the mainstream gaming audiences to the world of NFTs as well. Really big point. For us, it's not just about G2 esports, but about bringing our fans and gamers in general into the space, because we know that there's a lot of skepticism, and we know that there's a lot of let's say like a big hurdle, right, to cross, to get kind of like mainstream gamers interested in understanding what NFTs really are. And so we wanna be the project that can help them cross that hurdle.
Yeah, and I think there's something really exciting here, just in the sense that this is something that G2 is taking on and looking to make a gaming social club. So I'm sure you're going to get into this a bit more, but what are the fundamentals of something like a gaming social club? I think it's great. What have you guys been doing? But it really seems like that's the start. And how will this begin to proliferate?
Yeah, really great question. So, I mean, I think the thing is that it's quite a simple thing, right? Like, we're just creating a community. We're creating a community, a space for people for gamers specifically to join, to meet other gamers, to meet like-minded people, to share their interests and have fun together, have a fun social experience. That's ultimately what it is. And there's no kind of like a rocket science there. I think it's a fairly simple concept to understand, but a very difficult one to execute. There's a very good reason why it's very difficult to find strong communities where you truly feel you're like it's like a family, right? Like you want to be there, part of that community. You want to go on there every day after work, after school, spend time with the people, and generally just chit chat, have a good time, and have that social experience online, right? It's very hard, and I think that's just the reality of it, is that creating a space digitally which really fosters growth of relationships via online, right? Online interactions is a difficult thing, and that's very much what we're kind of like focused on. I think the second part of your question was like how are we doing it? Is that right? Maybe you can just re-clarify that so I can answer it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going through your guys' Twitter and watching what you guys are doing, and it just looks like really fun. Also, in the sense of taking this whitelist system and really recrafting it and incorporating it. I don't want to jump too far ahead of any of your presentation or anything, but that's sort of what I was getting at there. I've been watching the events you guys are doing, and they seem unique and fun.
Yeah, I love that. And in fact, it is a couple of slides later. So, maybe I'll just touch on it briefly, and then we'll come back to this one. You're 100% correct. From every step of the way when we built this project, from how we kind of incentivize people, how we do the whitelisting system, how we reward our community members, every step of it has been towards that goal solely. How do we create a fun social experience? And I think it's just one of those things which it sounds obvious, it sounds easy, but when you actually try to execute it, it's extremely difficult. And we spend hours every day as like a large team trying to brainstorm and think about what are unique ways of actually doing this, so that actually people actually want to spend time in the Discord, right? Because I think in a lot of cases, it's simply not that fun in most other communities. So yeah, it's a really big thing, and we'll speak on it a little bit more later on. So hopefully we can dive into some of the thought process behind that. But maybe that's a nice segue into so long term how we see the Samurai Army as a project fitting into G2's larger NFT ambitions. Because for us, it's very much about having this entry point, right? We have this core community of the Samurai Army, who are people not only into G2 esports and gaming, but also into NFTs. And this is really important because when we think about the longer term goals of bringing in gamers and mainstream G2 fans, uh, it's not going to happen without a strong community who believe in NFTs first. Because right now you've got a lot of, I think like in human nature, you get a lot of like sticking with the group, right? And it's difficult to be the early believers of something new, like NFTs, like blockchain. Probably very similar to the early internet days, right? When people used to ask, what was the point of the internet? Like why would you build anything on there, and like for you to be a believer of that new technology, you were very much in the minority. And so we're really trying to foster this strong core community of people who believe not only in G2, not only are our fans, not only are gamers, but also believe in NFTs, understand that value proposition. So that when we start really pushing out and trying to teach, our wider audience and the wider gaming audience about not only what we're doing, but through demonstrating to them through our project what NFTs can do, that when they come and decide, hey, I actually want to learn a little bit more about this, I'm actually a little bit interested, I might be starting to question my prior beliefs and understandings of NFTs, they've got a really amazing community to come to speak to learn from. And then we hope that from there, that they will eventually be converted into seeing what the potential of NFTs are. So the Samurai Army really is a very cool pillar of what is our kind of like long-term strategy. And then in terms of how we're looking at NFTs long-term as G2 the brand, it's very much as a technology, right? We don't look at it as ways to put out pixels or pixel art, or to whatever the new trend is in NFTs currently. For us, we look at it more on a fundamental level, and what do NFTs do? Because fundamentally, they're a medium for digital ownership, right? And creating scarcity in digital assets as well. And so when we look at that, actually, we think that there's a lot of amazing things that we can do with that, and with the G2 brand as well. When you look at everything that we do as a brand, and currently we're well known in esports, but in the future, our brand is very much an entertainment brand, and not just limited to esports, right, and competitive gaming. In fact, there are a lot of touch points which are going to be very relevant, that we believe are really relevant to our fans and our community. I don't know if you saw, but we released, I think we are the first esports and gaming organization or brand to release a music video just last month. So we literally created a label, released a music video, which is the first music piece that we've ever done. We hired out, we sent our founder and CEO Carlos to the US to film this, to sing in it, get professional, vocal coaching. It's like a proper music video with like proper budget and effort, right, put into it, and resources. Which is even, I think, is one of the top performing songs in the metal genre, or like a sub-genre of metal, which is quite a feat. I can say that I personally am not a listener to this genre of music, but it just goes to demonstrate kind of where the ambitions of the G2 brand are, and us stepping into this. And like for something like this, is you could totally see that in the future, behind the scenes recordings, mishaps, pictures, unreleased snippets of music, for example, right? That we never planned to release, but for fans of us and people who love the song and they love our players and they love what we're doing as a brand, this is really interesting assets and moments that are meaningful to them, and they might want to own that. And so we're very much looking at NFTs as a medium to deliver that value to our fans. So music I just brought up as an example, but very much looking at everything that we do. You can imagine, for example, some of our players at the next CS:GO major, making it to the major finals, winning that trophy or not winning that trophy. All of the emotional highs and lows within that, the behind the scenes and all of that stuff happening there. The potential for creating things of value for our fans to own, and not only for them to own, but for them to gain from, right? Because they might hold this memorabilia, which is digital in nature, for 5 to 10 years, and then one day when G2 is a household name, like an established football brand or an established NFL kind of like a team, for example, right, that kind of memorabilia, like holding a rugby ball, or like I forget the rings that you have in the NBA, the championship rings, right? Like imagine if you had that in 10 years after the championship of a historic run. You can imagine like the value of that could be, right? And we're able to give that to our fans finally. And so I think that's the really exciting thing. That's what we're really excited for in terms of NFTs.
Yeah, and just to jump in here real quick, Dan, I think what's absolutely worth noting is this is something that was brought in-house by G2. You guys weren't looking to tack the name onto something or incubate something. I think even one of the first chats we had when we were introducing, I threw out the term incubate, and you turned around and you're like, well, this is actually G2. We're looking to structure something long term and actually make a difference in the space and bring innovation. So I thought that was something that's just really exciting. And pretty much what you are outlining there is all the things you guys are looking to do, and really the idea of extending value beyond just this initial collection.
100%. And I want to just highlight again, everything comes back to, for us, it's always the fans, the community, our gamers, right? And it always comes back to, how do we deliver value for them? And that is very much what we build everything upon. That's why I think we're confident that we'll eventually create something that all of our fans and all gamers will be excited for.
That's great.
And so, like, I'll briefly just touch on this. It's worth highlighting that our project is actually built on Solana blockchain, and it was like a really important thing for us, because when we looked at this, again, coming back to how do we make sure that this works for our fans and our community, when we looked at Ethereum, right, which was, well, and is really the big blockchain where all of the NFT hype and space is currently, right. We definitely looked at it as an option, but the entry point and where Solana as a block, where Ethereum as a blockchain is currently, isn't so conducive to onboarding mainstream audiences, mainstream people who are not already into NFTs or cryptocurrency. You look at the average Ethereum NFT, and you have to spend hundreds, if not thousands, just to buy it, and then you're spending, maybe $50+ to transact anytime you move it, or buy it or sell it or whatever. Try to explain that to the average G2 fan, who's spending, I think currently our jerseys are like $70 to $80, and you have to spend that just on transaction fees. It's impossible. There's no way you can justify that. And so that's very important as to why we decided to go with Solana as a blockchain. We are really confident in their technology and what they're building and the execution strategy, most importantly. And that it's important to highlight, like, the transaction fees are, I think, in the pennies. I think it's around like point two or point three USD cents, like cents in USD, to just transact anything on Solana currently. And the average entry price for NFTs is around 100 USD currently. Likewise for ours as well. And so it makes it a lot more, the barrier to entry is much more accessible, which is really important to us. We wanted to make sure that this was accessible to our fans and the average gamer. We couldn't have put this at several $100s, being one of the first big gaming brands to enter NFTs, but it was a conscious decision to make this accessible, and something that works for the average gamer.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just on the front of Solana, it really goes to show. And as I was mentioning early on, I'm here at the Mountain DAO, which isn't an official Solana hacker house, but it's actually been a month-long event. And just seeing the community and the amount of talent pouring into the space, it just goes a step further. And I mean, the fees aspect is really just the no-brainer, but seeing all the talent pour in and how the NFT market itself is growing and how much more it has to catch up to Ethereum is really exciting, especially as we see top quality social club projects like you guys, gaming projects, and we definitely have a ton more guests. So like we're gonna see more of that as well. But just adding on to that aspect of what Solana is building, seeing the talent pour in is really the second, third level effects of the cheap fees and the technology.
Yeah, and I love that you highlight all of the great builders and people that you're seeing in it, because this was very much a important kind of like factor in us choosing Solana. Why Solana? Why not Tezos? Why not Polygon? Why not any other blockchain which is a proof of stake, right? And I think the key thing is that Solana really has executed on the strategy extremely well. You can have an efficient blockchain as an alternative. But what is very difficult is to build the user base, the number of people building on Solana, number of people buying on Solana, right? The marketplace, the amount of you look at like Magic Eden and the numbers that they're creating, as a secondary marketplace on Solana, it almost rivals like OpenSea. Like that amount of user activity is very difficult to replicate. And you might have a separate chain which is as efficient or competitive. But I think it's very difficult to be able to onboard that amount of users and builders and just activity in the ecosystem, which is also extremely important for all other projects in Solana as well, right? It's one of those things where the more that you have, the more that everyone in the ecosystem gains, and that's
100%.
also an important factor for us as well. And so
Definitely.
it's really worth mentioning that so G2 Esports as well is officially partnered with Metaplex as well, and so they are our advisors and partners, and they help to make all of our NFT ambitions possible. It's good to mention, I think, that we're in good hands. We have some incredible people working with us and supporting us, which I think hopefully separates us from most other projects, in being able to deliver on our goals. So I wanted to really briefly show off some of the art as well, and talk a little bit about the story, and cover a little bit of some of the the actual project at large as well. So here you can see a couple of the sneak peeks that we've released of our art already. I personally think it's very cool. I think it's something different to most of the art that you see in the space currently. It's We very much went with like a cyberpunky future theme, mixed with some, of course, the samurai aesthetic, right, which is core to the G2 brand. And some of that, like you see some like Asian themes in there as well. But very much like a cyberpunk is what we went for. And it's also mixed with elements of RPG games as well, right? And so I think, like, when you look at the design, you can notice already a couple of key features in terms of the design having different elements, right? You've got the helmet, the weapon, the body, the gloves, the background as well. And each of these are very familiar to the average gamer who plays RPGs, where you have to create your character, you collect armor, you collect loot and things, you upgrade it, and you change it, right? And we very much drew inspiration from that when we created our art and the direction that we went for, also for the relevance to our gaming community as well. So yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
No, I was just gonna jump in and just say I'm really fond of the art, and it was something that stood out right in the beginning. I remember right when you guys launched, it was maybe a month or so ago, and I just remember landing on the page and I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome artwork," before I even started getting into what was all going behind it. So that's just like always extra bonus points.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly how we looked at it as well. Obviously, art isn't necessarily the core part of our project. It's not an art project. It's not a PFP first project. We're creating a social club, and everything else that goes into it. That's really the core of it, right? But we did recognize that it's extremely important that art is still a big part of NFTs, and what has made NFTs explode, right? And so we recognize that it's important that we create incredible art that excites and gets our community really hyped up for what we're creating. And I think we've created exactly that, right? Something that is fun and enjoyable for our community. And so you'll see some of how that kind of plays out as we develop this project. The what I discussed about RPG kind of inspiration is quite key to that, and we'll be gamifying this and then making this a little bit more fun as a something that people can interact with as well. You can see here some of the key art that we created, and we've created, in fact, the whole backstory and lore behind this project as well, and where these samurai sit. What is the samurai army? What kind of world do they exist in? Why is it that they have the cyberpunk setting, and what is the world and motivations behind it? And actually, the lore itself will be, I say, it's not a key part, but we have developed it extremely thoroughly, because we integrate the lore and the story deeply into all of the activities that we've got planned over the next year. And so over the next year, we've got some tentpole moments, let's say, that activate the community. That will be big community events where people get some incredible rewards, but also unveils new parts of the lore and the story that we're building. So we've got kind of like all angles covered, right? You don't just get let's say some kind of activation where you suddenly get rewards and you're getting your your G2 signed jersey or whatever it is that you're winning, right, as being part of our community. But you get that plus the delivery of it in something that makes sense in terms of the world that we're building. And so yeah, maybe we can move on to a little bit about the community aspect of it as well. Also, Greg, just remind me, how much time should I be timing for this?
I mean, we're getting to the latter half, so we can start to wrap it up, but it's just
Cool.
great discussion. So I've just been letting it flow through.
Okay, cool. So I'll speed through this along, and you can let me know or jump in whenever. So I mentioned before that like building the community is extremely important for us, and we broke this down to like three kind of like key goals, right? Which I would say permeate everything that we do. One is that we have to be laser focused on delivering value to our community. Always, always, always delivering value. And this was such an important thing to us. We're extremely aware of the skepticism that gamers have towards NFTs. Extremely aware. And there's nothing wrong with that either, right? I think like gamers rightly feel that they are often taken advantage of when they're buying games, and you know how publishers kind of like treat them, and so they've got a very strong aversion towards anything which is, you know, they feel it's a money grab. And so for us, like, we understand that, you know, we don't, it's not something where we're like, oh, you know, that's stupid, like why do you not understand the value of NFTs? No, we understand that. And so we make sure that everything that we do is delivering real value that gamers can really kind of like understand and will be happy to receive. And so that comes in the form of, you know, when you're part of our community, being able to have access to, you know, limited NFT games or other games as well in the wider gaming industry, right? Being able to get that beta access, being able to get early kind of like peeks into things, right? Things that they're excited for. Bringing in people from the industry, the games industry, to speak to them about, you know, fun topics like how do you get into the games industry? What does their work entail? Like, what are they doing, right? So you have more of an inside look into the behind the scenes, right, of the things that you enjoy. Having access to benefits from G2, right? Things like signed jerseys from our players, signed equipment, things that you would not be able to get usually, right? Expenses paid trips for two to like the major esports competitions, right? And be able to experience that firsthand, seeing our players there as well. And like a bunch more kinds of both online, digital, and offline rewards as well. And so we really packed it in to make sure that when you're part of this community as a G2 fan and as a gamer, it's really obvious. Like, wow, you get access to all of this for that one. So for that, you know, 100 USD or whatever you're spending on it, and it's not just this picture online, which you know we supposedly tell you can get, but you can't right click, or you can right click save. um, and second and third to that is that we want to make sure that it's a fun, enjoyable social experience. I think this one is sorely overlooked in a lot of gaming, in a lot of NFT communities in general. You see a lot of communities, they have a lot of hype originally, but then they don't put in the time to grow that community and sustain it. For us, it's very much like this is the core of our project, and so we very much put in a lot of mechanisms and a lot of effort to spend time to grow the community and to foster the existing community that we have. You know, I speak to all of our members every day as a project lead. I look at so many messages, so many channels, despite it not necessarily being like my main job, because it's important that I understand like what is going on in the community, how does the community develop, who's in here, who's having fun, what do they enjoy, right? Extremely important. I understand that, and the whole team as well. The whole team behind this project is always in the Discord, understanding, learning about the community, interacting with it as well. And that's how we are able to come up with ideas and fun events and things that our community appreciates. And then thirdly, as well, to foster relationships and friendships between people. Again, it's just cool to building a fun social experience, but it's something that isn't actively thought of and something that we are very aware of, right? I'll speak now as a gamer that it's surprisingly difficult to find other like-minded gamers to game with. I personally play League of Legends, which is a 5-player game. I've never found 4 other players online who I wanted to become friends with and play regularly with. You know, despite I would love to play in a 5-man team with 5 friends. You know, I would love that. But the reality of it is that in the last, I'd say like 6 to 7 years of playing the game, I've always played solo queue. I've always played on my own. And so that's the kind of problem space that we're trying to tackle. We're trying to really build a proper community where you're able to find people to game with and fill that hole, which I think most gamers are looking for. I think most gamers are looking for that social experience when they're gaming, you know. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think the really exciting aspect here is how you guys have it set up. It's not some egregious fee to enter. It's not to say value's not going to accrue to these along the line. But if you are a gamer and you really want to get into this for the social aspects and building these things out, it seems fairly attainable to go to these events, to join in, to interact with the community. All of these things are almost like what is expected of people to be inside of the club. So if people really get excited, want to do it, they're able to join in and really interact. So I think that's great. And then just that second layer there of combining this idea of Web3 and gaming, I think there's that even further layer where finding 5 friends to play with, it's definitely possible. But then even now, if someone is interested in Web3 and crypto, finding 5 friends to play games with that are specifically interested in that will be much more difficult than just finding traditional gamers. So I think it also starts to bridge that gap. And then obviously all the value we've been talking about before, that is just you guys are really building a key pillar here.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that you bring that up because even in the short amount of time that we've been around, which is around 6 weeks now, I've seen so many people meet for the first time and become friends where they're literally like video calling each other in the Discord, chit chatting. Yesterday, I think we had like a group of guys cooking meals together, and then we turned this into an event where they're cooking meals, having fun, playing some games afterwards. Like this kind of social experience is something that I think everyone appreciates, right? Like especially in this post-COVID world where a lot more stuff is offline and you never know, is online and you never know when there's going to be more restrictions coming in. Being able to still have that experience and build new relationships with others is difficult to come by. Just to be totally blunt. And I hope that we fulfill that successfully for all of our gamers.
Awesome.
And
And yeah,
here,
Dan, I'm gonna push you to wrap up here. We're definitely
yeah,
gonna have to chat again, but speed through whatever, we'll wrap it up. And this definitely is not gonna be the last we hear from Samurai Army.
absolutely. So I guess I'll briefly explain this then. We created a whole system and an economy to incentivize people correctly. And so this was built to, a lot of people, when they go join projects to get whitelists to actually ensure themselves the mint, it's based on chat messages or invites and stuff. We didn't want this at all. We built a system where it's all manually reviewed such that when you are genuinely interacting in this community, talking to people, making friendships, that's what gives you points. And then you get you can use your points to essentially get yourself whitelist so that we are rewarding and keeping our most key members who make this community valuable and keep this community alive. And we want to make sure that those people stay with us. And that's how we've built up like a whole system to kind of like facilitate that. You can see in our next year ahead that we've already got a 1 year plan, which involves our drop on the 23rd of February next week. That is the public drop. But we've got a lot more things coming in this next year as well. World Boss events, which are a key pillar of what we're delivering, and those will happen 3 times a year, along with some collaboration drops throughout the year as well. Very low quantity with incredible artists. So we were going to be looking at some, really really cool art and some fun events every month as well. And so we've got this 1 year plan. We've actually got a 3 year plan. But we've got in this next 1 year plan already a lot of fun things to keep it fresh and exciting and keep growing ultimately over the next year. And the mint is really just the starting point for all of that. One of the cool features that's worth mentioning is how we're providing naming rights for all of our samurai, which means that you can actually name your samurai and that name will be put into the metadata of that samurai forever. We will never change it. It will be locked in. And so, it's another mechanism for really creating a bond between that NFT and you as a personal gamer as well. I mentioned some of the World Boss events earlier. We'll also have like a really cool special launch event on the 23rd, which is when we have the public mint. So this will be exciting. I don't want to kind of like spoil too much, but it's going to be really fun. People are going to want to join. They're going to want to join the voice chat. It's going to be very hyped. And so just to give a little bit of a teaser about that. And then I think some of the most exciting bit, which is it is one soul for our NFT next week. There are 3 stages to the mint. There is a free mint, which we are raffling away on the 21st of February. So a select few people who register via samuraiarmy.com will be eligible to that and will be able to win that. You will be able to mint the samurai for free. On the 22nd, which is when we will have the whitelist mint. So everyone who is whitelisted will have 24 hours to mint the samurai before the public mint. And there is still time to kind of like earn your credits so that you can actually get into the whitelist before then. And then finally on the 23rd of February, where we will have the public mint. And again, there will be 24 hours to mint your samurai. And anyone who wants to be eligible to mint, they will need to register via samuraiarmy.com on our website. It is a quote unquote whitelisted mint where if you are not registered, you will be ineligible to actually mint at all. And so make sure that people are kind of like registered there. And so yeah, thank you very much, Greg. I appreciate it. We really had to push through the end, and I'm sorry for taking up too long.